Very,
we are.
very on brand, as they say, offices.
You gotta be.
It gotta be, mate. And yeah, I'm super excited for this. As I said, like I remember back in 2016 when I was doing a sampling session in Bayley Sage in Wimbledon Village, and I remember seeing the can of water. And I was like, look, the black and the white, the yin and the yang, like that's sick. But I was like, I couldn't open it. Just being honest. But
people struggle.
Yeah, but then I was like, but then now, 6, 7, 8 years on, it's like becoming, it's a huge brand. And yeah, mate, I've wanted to do this for a while. I'm so glad we could finally make it happen.
Thanks for asking me.
No worries. So where I want to start, I always start in quite weird places.
Yeah.
I want to start with Boris Johnson and DJing. So you are a DJ.
I am indeed.
You're a hip hop DJ. I want to talk about hip hop as well.
Yeah.
But I really believe there's huge parallels between being a DJ. Not that I've ever been a fucking DJ, but like.
You never know, mate.
Yeah, you never know. At like the local cricket club, DJing, like playing a sort of Atomic Kitten, do you know what I mean, to the old boys. But I think there's a lot of parallels. There's obviously the hustle, the graft, the grit to get to the top.
Yeah.
You've got mates, Route 94, Second City, absolute bangers. There's also the kind of, a bit like how a brand has to have an identity, your music has to have an identity, feeling the audience, like that connection between the music and the audience. Again, that's very similar with building a brand. What would you say are the learnings you've taken from DJing that you've applied to building Cano Water?
It's funny because I've been a DJ since I was 11 years old. So as a kid, I was a bit of a crazy kid, and my dad, I couldn't concentrate on anything, but I was completely obsessed with music.
Right.
Just completely in love with music. My dad bought me my first decks when I was 11, and I just became completely and utterly obsessed with mixing music. And when I did my first gig when I was sort of like 15, 16, there was something that I absolutely loved about, making a crowd go crazy. Yeah. Also around that time I was in events, and one of the things that I used to do, I used to stand outside of nightclubs at like 4 or 5 in the morning just handing out flyers. And that was the first time where it was like hustle, like proper. And people would look at me being like, what the fuck are you doing standing outside at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning handing out flyers? And it was like, it's this hustle of introducing who you are. And that was my first sort of sense of building, and it is similar. It's very, very similar with especially in the early days of Cano, like standing outside of tube stations, handing out cans to people. And it's this hustle, brand building hustle, getting known, brand awareness. It really, really isn't easy. We spoke about this before. It's actually really, really hard. And DJing is very, very similar. It's funny. I actually get embarrassed to tell people I'm a DJ these days because every single person is a DJ. So
have you seen that meme where it's like it's like a meme of a guy on the floor, and it's like, are you a doctor? Are you a doctor? Are you a doctor?
I'm a DJ.
Then the last guy's like, don't worry, I'm a DJ.
That's literally how I feel. And I used to be so so obsessed with being a DJ because it was like no one was a DJ when I started DJing, and I was DJing on vinyl, and it was in that early period. I was very, very fortunate to be in that early period before any sort of virtual DJ, and it was sort of like really, really listening with your ears and beat matching, not with your eyes, but with your ears. The world's changed now, and it's obviously gone into a digital period, and it's completely, with AI and everything, it's changed. But I was and still am obsessed with seeing people's reactions with things. Hence with Cano, with a lot of like the hijacking and disruption that we do, I love putting we love putting our fingers on the pulse and sort of doing different shit. And I always talk about this. It's something that's really interesting. It'd be good to hear your take on it. Is I believe that in the world there are innovators and then there are copycats. And the innovators are the people that they just want to be the first people to do anything. So they want to, and this was me with DJing. It's like, I want to do a mix that no one's ever done before, and I want to shock people, and I want to see how far I can go to get people to go, fuck, wow, I've never heard anything like that before. Mixing old genres and new genres, and sort of not just doing the same old shit where it's just like house music through and through or hip hop through and through. Something very, very different. And innovators are the ones that they're the pioneers, they're the first to everything, and they're always constantly thinking, and at times their mind is so fucking back and all over the place because they're constantly thinking of the next thing. And then you've got the copycats, the ones that just copy everyone, that come in and they sort of they wait for the innovators to move. And I think my whole life has been like that. I've always tried to be an innovator, and the copycats are always sort of coming in and trying to take the things that the innovator has done. And I've seen that happen throughout my whole career, whether it be in DJing and in the FMCG world.
I think what you've said, that there are so many interesting parallels, as you said, between the founder and the DJ, right? I think one of the things that you said is really interesting is the ability to listen, and that's listening. You know, leadership is listening to what's going on in the zeitgeist. Like, listening, you guys, I'm going to come on to the beginning of the journey and stuff. You guys listened so intently when you're on that beach in Thailand that there was a movement coming. You guys were so early. There's that ability to listening to where the wind's blowing. You know, Oatly were listened carefully with oat milk. I think also the disruption and the kind of combining things differently. You know, I'm looking at this now, the wall behind you, which is kind of graffiti-esque, kind of water. Like, that could look like we're in a recording studio right now. Sure. But I love that. That's sick. Yeah. That's sick. What were some of the early tunes you were what kind of hip-hop were you, what kind of music? First question, and then...
I'm like Eminem, 50 Cent, sort of like that vibe through and through. Yeah. Big sort of, I'm actually like a big sort of Drake, new hip-hop fan as well. A lot of R&B early times. Like, to be honest, for me, I just am obsessed with music in general. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm obsessed with with creation, with innovation, and things that I've never heard before. Like, it's very, very strange. Like, in my childhood, there was a big dubstep era. I don't listen to dubstep now. How old are you now? I'm 33.
Yeah, I'm scared. I'm 30. Yeah, because I remember that screaming banger, like, vroom, 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 at house parties. I was thinking, fuck me, what's this? An earthquake?
When I first heard that as a kid, I was like, wow.
Yes.
Like, wow. I've never heard anything like that. And I'm one of these people, I'm probably the most annoying person to be in the car with, because I don't like playing music that everyone knows. I like finding new stuff. I'm obsessed with new stuff. So part of my ADHD is like, I'm obsessed with like what's trending and what's next. And I think, you know, you go to my Cano water and also with my two business partners, Ariel and Perry as well. Like, we're very, very similar. Like, hence why, and when we'll go into like why we even started a canned water company, where I think 90% of people who had thought of the idea would have just thought it was stupid and just not even done it. But when I look at the three of us and our characters, it needed three of us to create something like Cano Water, because the people that we are, and when I talk about music versus my life with Cano and even everything outside of Cano, I am just completely and utterly obsessed with like new sounds. What's next? What's the future? It's funny. Like, I am not, you know, that typical thing where like your dad is like, oh, turn this shit off. I hate it. Will probably be the complete opposite with my kids. I just want to know new, and really get a sense of understanding of why people are loving that type of thing. Because it's all good saying, oh, this is shit, but then, you know, my dad would say that about Eminem, but Eminem is one of the biggest artists of all time. And it's funny because my dad now will say to me, like, I used to tell you to turn that shit off, but actually I really rate Eminem now. And it's like, that is very synonymous to Cano Water. And I explain it to a lot of people. We all had a BlackBerry phone, yeah? We were obsessed with our BlackBerry. We were handing our pin out left, right and centre. And we thought, this is it. I'm never getting away from this. Probably the same with MySpace, you know, like, this is me. And then one day, some person at school got an iPhone. And you were like, what on earth is that? I'm not going to get an iPhone. And over time, more and more people start getting an iPhone.
Yeah.
And then you end up becoming the, the person that hasn't moved forward. And I would have been the iPhone guy. You know, I would have been that guy that probably got the iPhone because I like new innovation and new things. And I think that is, with music, with brand, is something that is very synonymous with the three of us boys. And funny enough, we came together through interests of music, fashion, brand. That's what we love. So behind Cano, you've got a drinks company here, but behind Cano, there's so much more of just common interests.
So I always think there's the iceberg analogy, not in terms of the hard work. That's a the iceberg thing. You see the tip. So let's say we see the tip. That sounds a bit dodgy, but let's say to the top of Cano Water, which is this glorious brand. You talked about your co-founders, Perry and
Ariel.
Let's go into that kind of iceberg bit. You've talked about common interests. What are these? How are you guys similar, and how are you guys different? And how are these the kind of the iceberg and the foundations of the brand? Like, let's talk about that.
100%. So when we started the brand, we couldn't be more different in our business side of things, which is a positive, I believe. Ariel was very sort of sales centric. I was a bit more marketing brand, and Perry is more sort of brand / creative, one of the most talented designers, probably the most talented designer I've personally ever met, hence the cans. I think that underneath all of that is interests in music, where as kids we would love like the same stuff, brands as well. You mentioned Oatly. I'm a big Oatly fan, just on mainly what they accomplished in such a short amount of time. Especially, obviously, they were doing a lot beforehand and pushing, but it's very, very similar to Cano, like told no, just so much like sort of like resilience and pushing, and just sort of like, I can imagine it being a very, very similar journey, being told no so many times, but just carrying on moving and going. And as the world moves with you, luckily your brand sort of rises up from the ashes, which has been very much our journey. But we are just we're very, very similar in our common interests, which, as I said, sits behind. So the brand of Cano is very much the three of us, because you could just, for water, okay, let's perfect example, water is not black or white. Water is blue or clear, and you think of mountains, and you think of this, and you think of that. If anyone from AB InBev or another big corporate was to start a canned water, they probably would put like waves or blue water on it, or it would be blue, or that's the reality of what would happen. We actually were the first people in the world to put water as black and white.
Why was that?
I don't know, mainly from Perry's mind of like the monochrome side of things, but there was no one doing it. It was like blue cap or another cap on glass bottles, but no one had ever done black and white. Now, if you look at Liquid Death, or if you look at Pathwater in the US, it's all black and white. We started that.
Cool. Yeah.
We started the black and white movement. I remember we were sitting together. Listen, we didn't invent black and white, but we were sitting together. I remember in 2015, and we were coming up with the Cano Water brand and all the sort of the material, because we'll go into how laborious the process was of actually creating the brand without even having a product, because no one had ever put water in a can before. But we were sitting there, and like one of the main things is you walk into a supermarket and it's just full of colour. There's no black and white. There's nothing on the shelf. So how do you stand out? If you go to the US and you go to Whole Foods, it's actually like it's impossible to stand out, because it's just full of colour. So our main thing was, well, let's just do the opposite of that. And I think that was Perry's vision from a design perspective. And, it's funny, my ADHD mind is so fucking crazy that inside my head, it's like a rubbish dump of just, or a washing machine of madness. That this brand is the complete opposite to what's going on in my mind, but it's what what visually appeals to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like it's like the other side of like, I have a crazy side which is not organized at all and it's just complete chaos, which is where my creativity comes from. And then I have another side where it's like this just peaceful side, where Cano Water sits. So as soon as Perry sent over the design, I think most creators would be like, no, you have to have this on it or that on it. And we were just like, no, this is it. This is perfect. Less is more.
There's, so I was thinking about it. So a couple of things on this. So David Hegarty, who's the big advertising guy, he writes a lot on, he was a co-founder of Saatchi.
Yeah.
And one of his rules is juxtaposition. So two things that you shouldn't put together always works in terms of standout.
100%.
So in terms of, you actually see this a lot in books. Book titles so the subtle art of not giving a fuck. That book, Juxtoposition,
100%.
It's something in it. And I was thinking about this, and I've got a fucking brain like you, mate, where I just overthink everything. But I generally believe overthinking when used negatively is overthinking.
Yeah.
Overthinking when used positive is creativity. Overthinking, I always talk about the Beatles, like them sat there playing Hey Jude, them overthinking it and getting it better, tweaking is creativity. But then John Lennon, when he's using it negatively, and I don't mean is probably fucking taking smack. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
So it's like you need both. It's the yin and the yang. And that's why
also ADHD and addiction are so close to each other.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about that because I've got a very hugely addictive personality, and I'm just trying to put it into this because otherwise it's like,
of course,
I'm just Anyway, but I think you're so right. It's the juxtaposition of the black and the white. It stands out. It's almost. I remember when I saw it. I was like, this just stands out. I think at the time I was like, this is almost like the Apple and the iPhone. To a drinks category. I was like, that's wild. But then also, on a much kind of more kind of deeper level, I think the reason humans love juxtaposition so much and it captures our eyes is because life is ultimately yin and yang. It's the kind of the flow of light and dark, happiness, sadness, creativity, overthinking. Like there's on a much deeper level, I think it speaks to that.
I agree.
In terms of so you kind of talked about your mind is a washing machine of madness, which is reassuring for me, mate. 'Cause I have a similar sort of thing. So you talked about, kind of, you got this relentless focus on DJing, brand building. You said you're a bit of a rascal as a kid. Like, how was you talk to me about that, and how was that manifested as Superpower now you're kind of 33?
Yeah, so it's taken a long time to see it as a superpower. At a young age, I was never a bad person. I was always a sort of like just unheard or what's the word? Like, I was always confused, at what my purpose was. I was not an academic at all. I found it incredibly hard to concentrate. I got diagnosed at the age of 11 with ADHD at a time where no one was talking about ADHD. ADHD was like if you have ADHD, you're a problem child, okay? So I was put in a category of like a bit hopeless, to be completely honest with you. Like, he's done for, don't concentrate on him because he's got ADHD. Whereas now we're in an incredible time where there's, ADHD is actually a bit celebrated because it is a superpower. But at that time, I only saw it as negatives. So it sort of propelled me into a world of anger, and I do have a very creative mind, but when you are thinking negatively, and your mind is clouded with negativity and anxiety, and we'll talk about burnout as well, which clouds it enormously. And people talk about this brain fog that we have.
I'm hearing the guy drilling. That sometimes feels like my mind, mate.
Know,
yeah. Some fucking drilling into
it. And to be completely honest with you, like, it isn't easy at all to have ADHD. But I think that, it took me a long time to come out of that. But what it did is it propelled me into the world of addiction at a young age, where I just wanted to shut the noise up, and alcohol filled a void and shut the noise up. I didn't have a purpose. So as an addict and someone with ADHD with purpose, you are a force to be reckoned with. Like, as a DJ, I started DJing as a bit of a hobby. A mate of mine was like, "Why don't we just DJ?" Next minute, I'm DJing at Ministry of Sound or in Miami, or as we said, Boris Johnson's wedding.
Yeah, we'll get on to that. We'll get back to that. That's
which is taking me to the mad. So when I'm interested in something, I will put 1,000% into it, and no one is overtaking me.
Yeah.
But if I'm not interested in it, like at school, whether it be maths or English, I find it impossible. So my mind would go into art. So I would draw, and I still do it now. Like I'm obsessed with art. I was obsessed with like Banksy as a kid, and
you can see it on the walls,
graffiti, and that's something that me and Perry became sort of best friends through a common interest of art. But with that, I need this dopamine hit, okay? And as a kid, I didn't know any of this. I didn't know what dopamine hit was. So now I'll do fucking mad things like an ice bath, or I'll go on a run, or I will listen to new music to find this dopamine hit. It's really weird. I'm probably the only founder that still is completely and utterly obsessed with standing in at an event after 8 years and handing out cans to people. Like, I'll be at Taste of London. I'll be there from 7 a.m. to 7, 8 at night, and I will not take a break. I'm obsessed with talking to people and hearing about people's thoughts about Cano water and why they love it or why they think it's the shittest brand and what we can do better. Like, I love that. There's something about that. Whereas I see a lot of other founders, they'll pass it on. It's not even a control thing. It's the fact that I actually love it. So I think that these are my superpowers now, where I could hone in on things that I love. So doing good for the planet is something that I absolutely love now. I didn't care about the planet before I started Cano Water. I was part of the problem. I'm now part of the solution. It's something that I'm now, that's a purpose. So we talk about purpose. They're my purposes in life. I'm now 14 years clean. I have another purpose in life. I help people, addicts who find it hard to stop using, or they just don't understand their mind. And I try and sort of suggest ways of how I got clean or how I've built a business of ADHD. So with purpose comes superpowers. Without purpose comes disaster for someone with ADHD, because they just sit there like, well, I'm not academic, or can't do this, or I can't do that, and they wallow in self-pity, which is it's hard not to with an ADHD mind.
Yeah.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Honestly, means the absolute world to me. I'd be so grateful for a small favour, please. It is so hard growing a YouTube channel. It is so bloody hard. If you please enjoy these videos, just click the subscribe button. More subscribers equals bigger guests equals better conversations, and hopefully you can learn more as you build your food and drink brand. Thank you so much.
It's there's lots to pull out there. I think the first thing is we talked about the positive of how you could, when basically this purpose is a thing, and I haven't been sort of diagnosed. I just bet the fucking kitchen sink on it. I have, because I've got addiction. Like, I'm addicted to this.
Yeah.
I'm fucking addicted to this.
Yeah.
You know, I was traveling the last 2 months. I mean, I'm sober now for like a couple of months.
Yeah.
I was sober for 3 months before I went away.
Yeah.
There's a quote I love, which is moderation. Absence is easier than moderation.
Yeah.
As soon as I got there, I'm smoking 20 a day, 30 a day, fucking caning pints.
Yeah.
And it's like not all day, every day.
Yeah.
Like not even going to the gym.
Yeah.
Then I come back, I'm like ice bath, all that stuff, sauna, all that. So it's really interesting. So I think, but when you've got a purpose, I think Jimmy Carr talks about this, because he went sober. He goes, as soon as I started comedy, I had a purpose. I went sober.
100%.
In terms of, so that's like the North Star that can channel these things from negative to positive, light to dark, I think, or sorry, dark to light.
Yeah.
Not the other way around. You talked about your mind being a washing machine and just being like a rubbish dumpster.
Yeah.
Describe that, because I think this could help a lot of people who are trying to build brands. Not necessarily with, I just feel like whether you've got ADHD or not, or ADD or not, your brain, just because there's so much to do, your brain's going to feel like a dumpster truck. Describe like what that is in your head, and describe how that makes you feel here, because you talked a lot about, you had anger, and these things resonate with me. Like, I'm just trying to prove someone wrong.
100%.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so it's funny actually, and I like to sort of we talked about brain fog, and I mentioned brain fog, and I think that's something that like it's like something blocking the mind, blocking the brain, and how do we clear that? If you try and think, how am I going to? I'll give you a perfect example. When I came out of rehab when I was a kid, okay, and
sorry, just to interject. So were you in rehab? Was that booze and drugs, or was it just booze?
15 years old. I had a severe alcohol addiction
15?
at 15.
That's wild.
From the age of 12 to 15, and I can't tell you why. I have a lot of addiction in my family. Just complete.
How much were you drinking a day? Alcoholic.
3 bottles of 500ml Evians a day. And it's funny because...
Of Evians?
Evian. Ironic, no?
Yeah.
But I would take it to school.
What, filled with booze?
Filled with vodka.
Fuck.
Yeah, and it was literally just to numb the pain.
But what was the pain you were in?
I had a lot of family problems. My mum was an alcoholic. A lot of people in my family got ill, unfortunately. So cancer went through my family, and the ADHD side of things was just weighing me down enormously, and a lot of things just weren't going right for me. I just didn't have a sense of belief in myself or a purpose, and just living in constant pain, where, to be completely honest with you, I prefer to have not been here. That was and many times as a young boy, I contemplated suicide because I didn't have a purpose in life, and I actually say in a lot of podcasts that if I was to write a book, my book would be called The Accidental Entrepreneur, because I wasn't meant to be where I am. I've got to where I am through mistakes, funny enough, and through learning of what I wanted. So it wasn't like go to school, go to uni, start my business, get the family. Woohoo! That wasn't my life. My life was, a lot of pain and suffering. Trouble with the law as a kid, at a very young age.
Trouble with the
law. Just sort of like waking up in streets drunk, and a lot of anger and aggression while being drunk. And part of my main purpose in life is to sort of I've righted all of my wrongs. My parents, it's just the craziest thing ever. Like, at one point in life, they didn't think they were going to have a son. Now the whole world that meets them says that how amazing I am. It's for me, the most important thing is righting my wrongs and giving back. Because I'm actually a very lucky person that I got clean at such a young age.
I was going to say, because that's, that is young, I was going to say. Because I was thinking most people are getting on it, getting on it at 19.
Yeah.
So 15 to, so describe like that 4 years. And I think we all have to have a rock bottom moment. I've had one a couple of years ago. It was kind of the genesis of this.
Yeah.
But you need to go to that point. To propel back upwards.
That wasn't my actual rock bottom. My rock bottom was actually when I was 19, and I had a small relapse on weirdly enough on laughing gas. Funny enough, but it was a progressive thing over the course of a few months. But I just couldn't stop drinking. I needed to stop. I knew that I had a problem. I don't usually talk about this a lot, but for the purpose of this conversation, I had a cousin that died of heroin, basically. So I knew how bad it could get. Also in rehab, I was 15 years old. I was with like 30, 40, 50, 60-year-olds. Half of them died or relapsed. So I knew what I didn't want to be. Okay. My dad came from nothing. So my dad literally grew up in a council estate, had nothing, somehow built himself a career outside of, he sort of navigated himself outside of it and built a life for me and my family. That I always say that my dad isn't the richest man, but he is the richest man because of what he's provided for my family, not even from a money perspective, but he's looked after us and given us values. And he's my biggest inspiration, and I've seen him work harder than anyone. I actually wouldn't even be the person I am today with Cano without him, and seeing his determination while having to navigate my family, unfortunately, my brother at 12 years old got cancer, and I witnessed my dad, not crumble and actually deal with it. And it probably behind closed doors, he was fucked, but he dealt with it. And I've learned a lot from that of how to be strong and like that. These things that I've learned earlier in life, I've now have sort of made me sort of a bit indestructible later in life to be the person I am, especially in business. And my resilience and strong sort of nature of being told no and carrying on is something that that has helped push Cano, I believe. But I got properly clean at 19 years old, and haven't touched a drink or a drug since. So 14 years clean. And just going back to the brain fog thing, I remember going into to rehab and them saying, like, don't think about the fact that you can never drink again, because if you think about that, your mind will just go fucking mad. Just think about today. So then transferring that to the conversation about an entrepreneur or a business starter or a brand, I think one of the main things is that everyone, especially in today's age, everyone wants to get rich quick. Everyone wants to just get there, get to the end goal. Fuck that. Just think about today. What are you doing today? Instead of thinking about A to Z, just think about A to B. And I think that that's one thing that I try and explain to a lot of young entrepreneurs or whoever, people that come to me, is like, stop trying to take the whole world now. Just your map should be like, just don't skip any steps. And that's where your brain fog and your brain starts to actually work in a much better way, because it's impossible to think about everything. And I think that that's why brain fog is becoming such a big thing at the moment, because everyone's so fucking anxious about everything, because they look around, and I heard something like, don't look up, look down. If you look up, you're just going to get depressed. You're just going to see that you're going to see all these multi-millionaires that have but if you look down, like I look down at like all the things that I've accomplished. And if I look at where I was to now, I mean, it literally baffles me.
Yeah, I think, this is probably a different for a whole podcast, but I think the social media thing is dangerous. Interesting. I was listening to Joe Rogan, they were talking about the inflection point of the iPhone and then social media, and the suicide rates of kids is fucked.
100%.
And it's all because, the famous quote is, comparison's the thief of joy. Never, ever, ever, ever have we been able to compare our lives. And the thing is, you're comparing your blooper reel, to someone's highlight reel. Yeah. So even that influencer who's gorgeous, that day, I know this is a bit crass, they've probably taken a shit that day. They're not putting that on Instagram.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like, 100%. They may have diarrhea. They may have fucking... do you know what I'm saying? But it's you're comparing your your blooper reel to someone's highlight reel. So it's not real.
Everyone
it's not real.
It's on a different journey.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that being in love with your own journey is the key to life. I get asked a lot of the time, like, what do you believe is going quite deep now, but what do you believe the purpose is? And I the purpose of life is, and I don't believe that the purpose of life is just to make hundreds of millions of pounds and buy a yacht and just sail off into the sunset. I just don't think that that's it. Like, for me, the purpose...
Just make 200 million pounds. No, I'm joking.
Exactly. Damn Pope, everyone. I really think the purpose of life is adding to life, so giving back and being inspiring, and sort of in recovery in AA, it's the 12 steps. So you come in step 1 and you're completely fucked. Okay, this is the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and then the 12th step is giving back to the next person. So it goes in like a full circle. It's very similar with what I believe the meaning of life is like giving back. Any single person that comes to me and asks for help or advice, I always give, because I believe that is the purpose of not making the mistakes that I've made and helping someone, be the best version of themselves. And I think that's, social media is like look at me, rather than and there are people that help, and that are big influence and inspirations, but I think that, more of that is needed, especially in the business world. I find the business world can be very, very, very toxic and very sort of like, if I look back at the early days of Cano Water, no one wanted to help us. No one wanted to help us. Even people that have known me for my whole life, a lot of them weren't supportive, and I found it really painful in the early days of like, why are you supporting random other people's brands, but you won't support your best mate's brand? And I think that's something that, I don't know whether it's an English thing, but it's something that I think that we need to do a much better job of as a culture in the UK to help entrepreneurs, because it is a really, really fucking hard journey. And it is so lonely. It doesn't matter. You can have a team of 1,000 people, but you could be the loneliest person on the planet. And I think that we need to come together. COVID was a really good time for me, actually, because I was in the worst place that I've been for a long time, because I wasn't DJing. Cano was really, really suffering. My dad lost his job. My mum got ill. Everything was bad. And I was sitting in this flat that I just bought thinking, I've just bought something with my own money, the proudest thing I've ever done in my life. No help, myself. And I am so fucking depressed. And speaking to other founders about the same things and knowing that I wasn't alone was so fucking important and helped, massively helped.
So there's an interesting thing to creativity, and it's almost this the lightness of the creativity is the song, is the thing you produce, but there's also an inherent darkness, right?
Yeah.
So the obvious example is the 27 Club, Amy Winehouse, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, all those stars.
Yeah.
They all died.
Yeah.
They created lots of lightness.
Yeah.
Some of the best fucking music of all time. Jimi Hendrix, I mean, like, listen to that. I'm like, what the hell is that?
On another level.
But he dies at 27.
Yeah.
I'm 30 now. 3 years ago, that guy dies. Even now you're sober, I think people think once you go sober, it clears everything. If anything, I've kind of felt like it fires everything up louder to begin with.
Yeah.
What you talked about being depressed, like, what is the how do you navigate the I actually think it's a force, because we're very similar, right, in this regard. So I think it's like this force. So when I like do creative things, it's turning this force into something really positive.
Yeah.
If not, I'm just overthinking fucking everything.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm kind of asking for a mate here. Like, how do you when this kind of the dark side bubbles up, what does that feel like first? Like, what are those thoughts, and then how do you mitigate it?
Yeah, I think I mentioned...
Not mitigate, yeah.
Yeah, I think I touched on it before around this purpose. Like, depression comes from... I think going back to this social media thing, actually, because it's a really good point on here. If you start looking up at everyone, or if you start to think that you are not, a success, and you lose your sense of belief in yourself, or things aren't going your way, if you can't navigate yourself out of that thought process, it will just get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I've been a victim of it. Family members, friends, everyone can be a victim of it, of like, what is it that I'm doing wrong in life? Okay. And it really, really isn't easy to just sit there and think, oh, I'll just do this or I'll just do that. That's why for me, tools, okay, like DJing and business and the gym are a really, really good outlet. But if you don't have those, like in COVID, like we said, it just easily just creeps back in. So in a place of lockdown, it's very hard to mitigate it. It's like virtually impossible. I actually felt indestructible before COVID. I thought, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. And it's really, really sad. But a friend of mine who I grew up with, who was just one of the loveliest people ever, took their life in COVID. And it really, really opened my eyes to, like, this is someone that if you put a list in front of me of 1,000 people,
you'd never think
he would be the last.
God.
And
I'm sorry to
a lot of people don't talk. That's it. And I think the thing with the 27 Club is that creativity and thinking is really, really, really difficult, because you're constantly thinking of how to innovate and how to be different and how to be new. And I find myself in that place a lot of the time. It's just thinking like, I don't want to copy anyone. What's the next thing? What's the next thing? That's what I love about Cano water. We were the first people in the world to put water in a can. I love that. I love having that thing.
That's you, mate.
You know, that's us. That's you know, and I think that I've been in that place where you're constantly thinking. It's really, really. It's like you're people might not see the work, but the thinking is there and toxic. And you know, you see it with people like Kanye West. Like they actually like lose the plot from being.
I was rewatching the. When we were on holiday, we went, in Costa Rica, I went on like a Kanye West and Frank Ocean fucking binge, basically.
I love Frank Ocean.
Frank Ocean's sick. You know that song, Ivy? That song
Frank
is like,
Ocean.
it's like in my head.
It's like one of my favourites ever.
Oh, he's so good. Like we're listening to just like the old school ones, like Swim Good.
I love Swim Good, Nostalgia.
Yeah, Super Rich Kids.
Yeah, I mean, I proposed to my wife with a singer singing Godspeed.
Oh, sick.
So like, I'm a big Frank fan, man.
So good. And but then the other one was Kanye West. So I was going through all his back album, like
College Dropout,
but you know, I'm trying to think of the songs now, but like, is it I Wonder?
Yeah,
I'm not going to sing for everyone, that'll really put everyone off. But I was thinking, Jesus Christ, and it's like, you go through that back catalogue, and it's like, but then you watch that Genius documentary, and he's just, it's kind of that.
You know what it is? You actually can see this. And listen, I'm not the biggest fan anymore of him, unfortunately, just because I just think that creative genius, but also just toxic mind. But what you can see is someone that is always trying to innovate, and trying to stretch as far, and ends up basically just going mental.
His new album is sick.
Yeah, sick.
But his new album, to talk about that, is his. You know, he's got the almost like the mask on, and then the woman looks a bit like Kim Kardashian.
Yeah.
It's like he's got a wife now, but he's still catching on to that. It's like
100%.
I think that album is the best example of this light and dark.
Yeah.
We're going to come on to the genesis of Cano water. And go to Thailand, but I'd love to just know on this newness thing, because it's kind of an addiction to new. Like how can I rip it up? Like I always think, how can I rip it up again?
Yeah,
you know, I'm thinking of doing a podcast with this guy who's remained anonymous, so I can't say who he is, but like he pulls a lot of strings in London nightclubs.
Yeah.
And he was like, I don't want to come on the podcast because I don't want people to know. And he owns those restaurants. I was like, why don't we do an anonymous one? I don't care if anyone likes it.
That's really cool.
Yeah, which probably no one will listen. But it's this obsession with me. What new things are you obsessed with right now?
New things.
Or like new ideas or new... What are you like... I think there's the kind of the really clever way of saying what Rory Southern taught me is like stoicistic tinkering. So you're always just tinkering with things. Do you know what I mean? Like what are you tinkering with?
Do you know what? I think health for me is one that I'm super obsessed with. Like not being a health freak and being that gym bro in the gym.
Yeah, bro.
Right?
Well, David Lloyd earlier. Yeah.
But like gut health is something that I'm very sort of interested in at the moment, and just sort of how we can sort of better ourselves. As I said, like something, music and art and fashion will always be for me like what is like that new in thing. I'm a complete sucker for like just I get sucked into Instagram ads. I'm just gonna put it out there. That's me. Like I will see something new and I'm that guy who sort of like I look for like the new sort of creativity in certain things. I can't even think and pinpoint what new things I'm sort of thinking about, but I will sort of I take a lot of inspiration from the world of music. It's like funny because water is actually the most boring. It's a really boring world, okay, water. If you look at like, the only thing that, if I said to you, what's the only thing that you have thought of in the past 10 years or 15 years of water, you'd probably just say the Evian baby advert of the babies dancing. There's nothing really.
This is why I think what you guys have done is totally wild.
And we just took it outside of that. We brought in a little bit of fashion, a little bit of art, a bit of music. You know, Liquid Death have done a really good job of spicing up the category when it comes to like going into that sort of rocky era. And I think that we need more of that to spice up the category, because the energy category is fucking mad. I mean, it's probably actually hard to innovate in that category because there's so much wild stuff.
But also, I think
on.
because when you've talked about the music, the fashion, and the kind of the creativity and newness, the can literally resembles that. As you say, it's water.
Yeah.
Now, why I'm fascinated to talk to you, mate, is because everyone I speak to, or most people, they have a point of difference on the product.
Yeah.
Which is, if you've got a point of difference on the product, i.e. you taste better, you taste different,
Yeah.
it kind of, the rest falls into place.
Yeah.
Why rate you guys so hard? You've taken fucking water. I know it's in a can, but it's like, it's not, but then this is where the branding comes really interesting. But also, because you've had this obsession with music, new branding, fashion, is the can is a kind of a totemic resemblance of that, but then also it allows you to put it in the right places. So Carlos Sainz drinking it at the F1,
100%.
Fashion, branding, cool, bam, 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 bam.
Yeah.
So it like builds this brand world.
That's something, by the way, that I am so proud of.
How does that happen? Are you sending out? How are you getting these cans in the right places?
This is the maddest thing, and this is something that, like, I think that a lot of people underestimate. As you walked up the stairs, there's a wall of fame. Okay, and we'll have a look at it as we go back down. It's a wall of Cano fame
or something. Yeah.
And it's baffled me from the day that we started to now. What I am so proud of is that when this product is put somewhere, people like holding it because it looks good. Okay, now what you'll find with a lot of other people, celebrities and brands, is that because they know that the limelight is all on them, they don't necessarily want to be holding different products. I actually have a funny story. When we first launched, there was a guy that was working for us who was doing a sampling session in Whole Foods in Camden, and he called me up and he goes, "Josh, you don't understand. Harry Styles has just walked in. What do you want me to do?" I was like, well, first of all, calm down.
Yeah.
And just offer him a can. Anyway, the next minute, I hear him go, "Harry, the CEO of Cano Water's on the phone." Well, first of all, I wasn't the CEO at all. And the next minute, I'm on the phone to Harry Styles. And I'm talking to him, and he's like, "I'm sorry, man. You know, I can't hold the brand because I've got a deal with Coca-Cola and everyone's watching what I do." Was that a good? Mate, it was really good. Thank you.
Harry's right in front of me.
I've been working on it for years.
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm just really sorry." And he basically just told me to piss off, basically. So I knew it wasn't going to be easy to get Cano into the right people's hands because they're always being papped and they're always being shot, and they know how valuable that picture is. But we have somehow got into the hands of everyone from Bill Gates, Drake, Dua Lipa, you know, all the F1. I mean, on the new Drive to Survive, episode 2 and 3, we are everywhere. We're everywhere. I'm not the biggest F1 fan, but it is mental to see. And I think it's because, like, water is an impulse buy. Yeah. And people will just go and buy the product that and it trust me, one of the most difficult things of Cano Water has been to try and convince people to go from plastic bottles to cans. Hands down. It's something that people have been used to forever. We've done an amazing job where we've sold over 50 million cans. But it hasn't been an easy job. But what we've done is we've got these innovators who are like celebrities, could be tastemakers, innovators, who are sort of like, I don't just want to hold a plastic bottle. I just want to hold something a bit different. And I'm happy. I'm happy to hold something a bit different, and it goes in my outfit, or it's a bit cooler, or I don't want to be walking around with a plastic bottle. It's like what everyone else is doing. So we basically created something where Ed Sheeran's happy to go on stage and wave a Cano Water about, or, you know, it's been placed somewhere, and I don't know, whoever it is, Dave the rapper's got it in his studio, or the Sidemen, who, perfect example, I went on a Sidemen video that overnight got 10 million views. I couldn't leave my house for 2 weeks because these guys are so famous. Okay, everywhere I went, people were trying to get a picture of me. I mean, it's just the maddest thing. I mean, I'm a nobody, but these guys are huge. You know, on the episode, they were talking about how they all drink Cano.
Sick.
You know, it's just so, like, it's so nice and so organic. And I think that what I'm most proud of is that we haven't paid a penny, not one penny, to get in the hands of these people.
I have just discovered a secret weapon. Please don't tell anyone. This secret weapon helps you get listed, stay listed, and most importantly, grow
This secret weapon is being used by absolutely banging brands like Bold Bean Co., Perfect Ted, Neat, Trip, and Cheeky Panda. No wonder they're absolutely smashing it. But look, are you ready to get your mitts on this secret weapon and absolutely smash it too? I am thrilled, so thrilled to announce our brand new podcast partner, North Star. What is North Star, I hear you thinking? North Star is a monthly subscription to an online platform giving you access to category data, category insights, anytime, any place, anywhere. It's basically the Netflix for challenger brands. It levels the playing field. Why do you need category data? Well, the first thing is making your pitch speak the buyers and retailers language is so important. It's going to help you unlock more listings, unlock deeper distribution with existing clients, back the right NPD, and actually understand how your competition is performing. But the even better news, are you ready to rock and roll at your next range review? You no longer need to hire a full-time category manager. Instead, just parachute in North Star when your next Waitrose, Sainsbury's or Tesco range reviews coming up. They're your outsourced in-house partner. Save money. Their team will come in. They'll help you prep, plan and smash your next range review. I'm so excited to be partnering with North Star. Check them out in the episode description below. Delighted to announce the extension of our partnership with the wonderful Billy and Paul from Mackenzie Jones, but even more exciting, they have just launched a brand new brand as part of Mackenzie Jones called MKJ Ignite. MKJ Ignite is a recruitment firm which specializes full shebang focus entirely on challenge brand space. They work with some incredible brands, Lucky Saint, Goodrays, Purdy and Fig, Hunt and Gather, and Real Superfoods. They can support with your hiring needs across all levels, top to bottom, junior entry-level jobs, all the way through up to MD and CEO level. So if you're looking for a field sales stomper, a sales wizard, an ops guru, a supply chain sensei, you name it, MKJ Ignite can help you out. And look, if you're looking to wet your whistle, ignite your curiosity, then check out the poddy we recorded with them back in July. Laden with wisdom, all about like do's and don'ts of hiring and like how to create the perfect job description. You will love it.
The more I think about it, you've basically built a fashion brand, really,
Basically.
because the product. I mean that in a very like unbelievable way. Like it's wild, and because as I say, it's not like you're manufacturing, say, a unique granola for your gut. It is water ultimately. I mean, so that's insane, and so this was all organic. So so like for example, so who's on that Fall of Fame? Fall of Fame.
I like that. I might change it. Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Hall of Fame. Sorry, man.
Honestly, there's probably about 40, 50 celebrities on that wall. Anyone from Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua. We'll go down there. Like Sabrina Carpenter, who's like one of the biggest singers in the US. Like, just it's all about the places that we are at, you know. So like the distribution that we've got. But a lot of these places, whether it be like global, so Capital FM, Heart, all of these types of places that have Cano water, a lot of the big clubs in the UK. So we just launched in Drumsheds, which is like one of the biggest clubs in the country.
That was the old Printworks.
The old Printworks. We've actually got like a bar there. It's like really, really cool in there. So one of the things that we haven't touched on, but like the three of us were just wanted to do with this brand is we wanted it to be part of culture. We wanted it to be in culture, and culture has so many different facets, you know, whether it be within fashion, within like, you know, music. There's so much different culture. And we always talk about cool. Like, cool is so subjective, but because anyone can be cool in different areas. But there is a Cano cool, you know, and I think that holding a plastic bottle in 2024 just ain't cool. I don't believe it is. You know, look at what the world is doing. You know, it's funny actually, because you know who the coolest person is to me? David Attenborough. Like, he's cool. Like all the plastic companies can pay people left, right and centre to just hush. You know, there was an article in the other day in The Guardian, I don't know if you saw it, they've lied. The plastic producers have lied for the past 30 years. They knew where all the rubbish was going. Of course they fucking did. Of course they did. You're telling me that the guy at Danone didn't go on holiday like we did in Thailand and see, you know, and I think that, you know, what I love about David Attenborough is he was just like, he just is an innovator, really. Like he's the reason we even exist, to be honest with you. No one listens to the three of us boys until David Attenborough spoke.
Let's go. You just talked about kind of Thailand. Let's actually go back to that beach from Thailand with Perry and
Ariel.
Yeah, I'm so bad with names.
Right.
I interviewed a guy a couple of weeks ago from got a brand. I couldn't say the name of the Italian city. It was like Prosecco or some shit. I ended up calling it Prosecco. No, not Prosecco. Prosecco or some shit like that at the end. So you're 20. How old are you?
22 years
22.
old.
Take me to that first day when something happened in the three of you lads' soul. You walk down that beach. What do you see? Paint the picture. What does it smell like? What does it make you feel? And kind of talk to me about that very early kind of time in Thailand. We thought, right, we have to do something about this.
So lads' holiday.
Yep.
No purpose. Didn't think we were going to come out with a business idea.
Were you sober at this point?
Sober, yes.
Oh, sick. Okay, cool.
22 years old. Sort of. I was not. I didn't actually have. Like I was doing a bit of events and DJing, but I didn't really have a sole purpose at all. But I always wanted a brand was always at the back of my mind because I love brands. But on this trip, no expectation of anything. And we're in Thailand and we're in a remote island on PP Island.
Yeah.
And have basically just seen a load of small plastic particles and a lot of plastic bottles basically being washed up on the island, basically. And, you go on these tours. We were on one of these tours and they've basically said, you can go off and then come back in an hour. And we just saw, shitloads of plastic. It was just something we kept on seeing. And we were just talking like, how is it that brands like Coca-Cola and Danone and all these brands that we grew up absolutely loving, how is it ending up here? It's so confusing. We've been speaking about recycling for forever. Like we didn't. Why is this happening? We didn't see how bad it was at this point. We just saw what we saw. When leaving that and I think that when leaving the island, we were just talking about it constantly. And through doing a few Google searches, you can fucking see how bad it is. And what you see is environmentalists who no one's listening to because before Greta Thunberg, it was just like a 50-year-old standing outside of Coca-Cola's head office with a placard saying fuck plastic and blah, blah, blah. But the general public looked at those people as being a bit crazy. And I'll never forget, and I've said this in a few podcasts, I was standing at Whole Foods once. It always bloody happens at Whole Foods, doesn't it? Kensington, this one. And some sort of 60-year-old woman came over to me and asked for my autograph. And I was like, why? Why do you want my autograph? She goes, because I've been talking about plastic pollution for 30 years. No one's listened to me. I've dedicated my whole life to it. No one's listened to me. But you have been listened to. You've got a product on the shelf. So, that was it. A lot of people were just ignoring these environmentalists, similar to like the vegan movement. Like, don't talk to me. Like, it's just, don't shove it down my throat. Don't shove it down my throat. And that's what, there was a lot of pushback. So when we saw that actually this is a really big thing, and actually in the middle of the ocean, there is fucking plastic everywhere. And it's just the landfill is growing and growing and growing and growing. We were like, oh my God, like no one is listening to these people and these companies are just getting away with it. And it made us angry, really, really, really angry of like, how is this happening? And how are they getting away with it? And through copious amounts of research into packaging, you've got glass bottles, which are recyclable, but they're very heavy. They don't stack up very well on a truck, which can be a problem, and also from a carbon footprint perspective and their heaviness, it can be a bit difficult. But also, if you're going to replace a plastic bottle with something, it has to be as on the go and convenient. We live in a world full of convenience, okay? Unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there that don't give a shit about the planet. And even if they say they do, and they might be walking around with a Cano, they're still buying Kirkland bottles for their home, okay? Like shitty, that's the reality, is that a lot of it is a smoke and mirrors, like sort of like behind closed doors sort of thing. And we've seen that. And I think one of the main things is, how do you make sure that if you're going to replace a plastic bottle, that it is as on the go and convenient for the consumer? So glass smashes. A lot of people don't want to put it in their bag. It's banned from a lot of places. It's impossible to be the 100% solution. Tetra Pak, okay, cartons. No one really talks about this, but they're worse than plastic bottles. Okay, they're fused with aluminium, paper, and plastic. They're an absolute nightmare to recycle. There is a big difference between recyclable and recycled. So just because something is recyclable doesn't mean it is getting recycled. And that's the problem with plastic and Tetra Pak. It's a nightmare to recycle. So it ain't getting recycled. So even if it's 100% recyclable, yeah, that's all good. But it needs to be recycled. Aluminium is the most recyclable material on the planet. So when you recycle a can, it will always come back as another can. It will be what it was meant to be, a can. So 75% of all aluminium produced in the 1800s is just still in circulation. And it just had such a good story. So we were like, wow, why has no one put water in a can? And the reason was because of what we said before. Any person that left a big corporate business or Danone or Bellew or whatever would say, yeah, canned water would never be a thing. Never. It's impossible for it to be a thing. So that's why I believe no one's created canned water. Well, funny enough, when we first started canned water, we get messages being like, oh, I thought of this years ago. I thought of this, but you didn't start it. Yeah. You didn't start it because you got to the same hypothesis that everyone else would have got to. It's a shit idea. But we, which I'd like to, put us in this innovator category, there was no blueprint for canned water. We're not a copycat, we're an innovator. So we started this and we were like, we're not going to take no as an answer. We believe we're going to be the punch bag and the guinea pig. We're going to take all the shit to make this work. And I think that's one of the hardest things about the journey of Cano Water, is that we have been the biggest punch bag. We really, really have been a punch bag of like, just no, shit. Then something happens, David Attenborough, oh, actually, yes, we'll take you on. Then another water, then another canned water comes in. And I think one of the hardest things is for being a young startup entrepreneurial business is you can't be perfect, but you're literally, it's like you're the surfer, but you're surfing against the biggest waves. And you surf and then you just get fucking brought back to shore. And then you go back and you go over that wave, and then it is so tough being the first to do something. Because you're writing the blueprint, aren't you?
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that. I think what's fascinating is right at the beginning when we were talking about your DJing, you said one of your superpowers was this ability to listen, this ability to be angry about something, this ability to be obsessed with the new thing. And it's like you come to Whole Foods market and the woman comes up to you, asks for the photograph. It's like, well, actually what you've done is you've combined those three things: anger at what you saw in Thailand, obsession with newness, and listening, and actually listening to the point. And we're going to talk about this wave analogy because I think it's interesting, because the wave is, granted, to begin with, it was pushing you back, but I actually believe you guys now, and we're going to talk about the resilience and the punch bag stuff, but you guys were the only ones in the fucking water to begin with, catching those waves, or you're the only ones paddling out, right? And now that wave is very much here, and you're surfing it. And I think, do you know Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's side man? Not saying like that, but but he's got a thing is about being on the wave. And a lot of people, and actually the guy who gives a crap, the toilet bowl. He talks about being in the water. And I think I think what a lot of people go through is they get into the water, they get the waves pushing them back, punch bag no, and then they get out. David Attenborough saying yes. They get to the next wave. Punch bag no. But then if you just keep going,
have you seen that picture of the guy hammering away? Have you seen
that?
Oh,
what, and the gold's just there? Yeah.
The gold's just there.
Yes.
And there's been so many times when we've thought about turning back. There's been so many things where, you know, in 2018, we were literally 3 months from going insolvent. We were building, you know, we brought in a managing director. He basically said, listen, guys, you're building a really good brand, but like no one knows it really. Like you might have a few celebrities holding it, but you're not making any money, you're not selling enough, and you're just running out of money, basically. And he basically said, we've got 3 to 4 months to really turn this around.
How did you turn it around?
Basically, just, well, it was a bit of luck, but we basically just planted the seed in every single we did everything within our power, everything. Like we were driving around the whole of London, handing out cans to people, building awareness. Like we were doing huge guerrilla marketing sort of stunts where a lot of people would think it was beneath them. Like we would just sort of, we didn't have any money. Like we would just sort of like stand outside of places or like we'd be, I mean, like one of the things I'm not proud of, but it did help us is we would take off people's billboards on the train and replace it with our own ones. We couldn't afford to, but this was like for us at this point, it was life or death. Like we were literally 3 months. And I think that people started talking about us. So people started actually, this whole chicken and egg situation in FMCG where you go to an independent cafe and you say, we want you to sell Cano water. And they'll say, but you need to be in with the wholesaler. We'll then go to the wholesaler and the wholesaler will say, you need to have 15 customers. We'll then get the 15 customers, we'll get on the shelf, and then the independent cafe would say, yeah, we've got you now, but no one knows what you are and no one's buying you. It literally is this chicken and egg horrendous situation. And trust me, it's 100 times harder when you have a canned water brand because everyone thinks you're an energy drink or a beer. They don't know what you are. They don't know why you exist. So we've got to make 10 times more noise. So if you're just a plastic bottled water brand or a glass water brand and you can see the water, I know what that is. It's just another water. But if you're that, yeah, you might pick up the shelf, but it's confusing. So it was all about, for us, it was all about making noise. We did some sort of like pop-up shops in Old Street Station, and we did turn up at like your Tastes of London, like unannounced and all these types of things. But essentially, we did start to get a bit noticed in those 4 months. But the real thing that was the catalyst, which was so amazing, and if we didn't have this, we would just have faded out, like a lot of brands that we've seen over the years, is that on the last month where we were literally probably like we were running out of money, David Attenborough and Blue Planet, BBC, they did an episode about a whale that had died, and its child was like crying basically. And honestly, I'd never forget it. Overnight, we went from being the biggest fad. But
where did the can of water come into the whale's kid?
It didn't. But what happened was that.
The plastic killed the whale.
Plastic killed the whale. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, plastic killed the whale, and overnight, everyone went on the same journey that we went on, which is, fuck, I need to get rid of plastic. What is better than plastic? Go on the journey. See the same thing we saw. Aluminium's better. Oh, these 3 idiots called me up 4 months ago talking to me about this canned water product. So we fast-tracked all of these places, Breaks, Bidfood, Booker, Tesco, all these places that take people a long, long time. We got in there very, very quickly because we now became a necessity. So overnight, we went from selling a few 100,000 cans in 3 years to nearly 12 million cans in 2019.
Sick.
Which is just mental.
Sick. I think you create your own luck, and I think you said, I think people say, you need a bit of luck, but I think the harder you work, the luckier you get. I really do believe that. I really believe that. And I think there's something to get quite spiritual here. There's something in, I really believe.
The secret.
Yeah, but I really do believe that. I think something's working for you. So if you just keep showing up, there'll be a lot of people who have brands. I've got so many mates who've had to shut up shop.
Yeah.
Shut, that's a bit of a mouthful. Shut up shop. Yeah, that's right. They're at that point where the gold could be there, or they turn back.
Yeah.
What were the hardest conversations you were having in your head about whether to continue and go back? And like, if there will be someone listening to this who's at that moment of like, should I just fuck this off?
Yeah.
What would you say to that person?
Stephen Bartlett did a thing. He's put it up a few times about like, it's also a skill to know when to quit.
Yeah.
Which I agree with,
Yeah.
because sometimes you are flogging a dead horse, and if you don't get any traction, you need to know when to quit, because you could be putting your energy into something else. And, I've seen people start something and it hasn't worked, and they've started another thing and it has worked, and it's been amazing. So super important to know when to quit. And I think that isn't for me to decide, that's for you to decide, but you need to sort of give yourself those objectives, or sort of that sort of that mental map in your mind of when is the right time to stop, and if I don't hit this by X, I've just got to give it up. And I do believe that any experience is good experience. If you met me 8 years ago when I started Cano Water, as a completely different person, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. All of it has been through experience, and the resilience actually has been built up from day one to now. For me personally, I think that, as a kid, one of my biggest things of ADHD, and one of the biggest ADHD traits, is starting something and not finishing it. But I've always been very good at knowing what is the right one. I'll give you an example. Like, it's going to sound so weird. I've been in many relationships, but when I met my wife, I knew straight away, she is the one. She's the one. I knew it. She is the one. I knew, because just the person that she was. I've been in so many different relationships, but I knew that she was the one. I went to go and see hundreds of flats when I walked into this flat, I knew that this is the one. I've always sort of been very good at making the right decisions, and I think that that's a skill in itself.
How do you teach your team that skill? Because it's
of course.
I think Jeff Bezos, whatever. He's got a thing which is, we're going to be the most effective decision-making company in the world.
Yeah.
So actually, the Amazon, the Amazon is further downstream, but actually upstream is, we're going to be so good at making decisions quickly and effectively.
Yeah.
Because I think, and I mean, even some of the big companies I occasionally work with or like do some stuff with, is I'm like, how are we getting bogged down in this? How are we going around the houses with this? I'm like, this is just driving me insane.
I don't think personally,
how can you teach? Can you teach it, or how do you get your guys to do?
I don't know whether you can teach it. I think that you have to hire good. That's my view on it.
And how do you test that in the hiring process? I know it's a really hard question.
Yeah, it is. I think it's through asking questions and hiring smart and not quick. It really, really isn't easy to hire at the moment. It really isn't. But it's super important that people are. That's why I think it's super important for the people with the quality to hire the people, if that makes sense. But I don't think it's very easy to learn that skill personally. I think it's something that comes naturally to people, and you can actually see through decisions that they've made in the past, through whether if they've worked somewhere else. And also, it's just like, I think that if I sat with someone, I could probably notice it quite quickly. Just on the way that someone's talking. But it is a skill that I am very fortunate. I've got a lot of cons, but I definitely think one of my pros is, I'll give you an example. Like, as a kid, I always felt a bit sort of like, oh, everyone's going into recruitment or property or banking. I'm a DJ. This was at a time when no one was a DJ and no one really thought DJs were cool. 10 years later, every single fucker wants to be a DJ. And I'm standing there like, everyone wants to be. So I feel like going with my gut and not going with the crowd has been something that, like, started a canned water company. Could have started a flavoured beverage, like something that's been there forever. And I think that it's something that's been synonymous to me forever, which we've got into, whether it be like the new music or the new this and the new that. It's about going with your gut instinct. If Cano water just went with what is normal and what isn't different, then we would just end up like every single other beverage company. And I think that it's that juxta thing is really,
well,
really...
also, yeah, the juxtaposition thing is really
huge.
interesting. It's huge, and it's you see it in so many things.
If anyone has started a business and has got through the first few years, they are special. I do believe that.
Also,
because
the way I see it is almost like, and I mean this in a positive way, like almost the black and the white is almost like the black sheep.
Yeah.
Like you were different at school, you were first.
100%.
But then there's real value in that because, you know, going against the grain or going against the herd, and ultimately, as you say now, every fucker's...
We've got it written on the wall here, defy the norm.
Defy the norm, there we go, yeah.
Like that is our, don't bottle it, is literally, and define the norm is literally our...
Oh my God, I am so excited. It feels like Hungary is finally swimming in the big leagues. I can't believe this, it's absolutely mental. But delighted to announce that Big Fish, yes, Big Fish, are partnering the podcast. Perry's been on the podcast 3 times. Listeners absolutely love it. Some of our most downloaded and cherished episodes of all time. But Big Fish are behind literally so many brands in your cupboard, in your weekly shop. Charlie Bigham, Year Valley, Tyrrell's, Clipper Tea, Goo, Rana. I mean, mate, the list is longer than the River Nile. But they also share risk and invest in brands that they really believe are a force for good. They're brands that they believe are going to be the next big thing, like Howder, the snack that gives back. But even more exciting news, Big Fish want to speak to the next wave of small challenger food and drink brands that are destined for big things, the raconteurs, the movers, shakers, buccaneering visionaries. So look, if you want to speak to Big Fish and just have a chat, get your brand in front of them, then drop me a message. My mate Louis from Local Beer, Amazing Beer, was in their office, aka La Fish Bowl, last week, chatting to Perry, Freddie and the Big Fish crew. So drop me a message if you would like to speak to them. Bohemi, our beloved sponsor, are helping build the fastest growing challenger food and drink brands. Look, if you're a small brand just starting out and need your first indie stockist, your first 100 stockists to wholesale, Bohemi are the platform to categorically speed that up. But if you're a big brand wanting to get bigger, Bohemi are also insane. They make field sales marble smooth, silky slick. They're just epic. Ollie's been on this podcast twice actually. They saw a 29% uplift in sales when using Bohemi to check major malt listings availability. Insane. 29% uplift by downloading an app. Insane. Lucky Saint, my boy Aaron Duff, who's coming on this podcast in a couple of weeks, he uses it to manage a team of 30 people, and they've, Lucky Saint, have unlocked 500 draft listings by using Bohemi. Look, you've got to get involved with this stuff. It's absolutely insane, and it will categorically change your life. It's just the sickest platform. I use it all the time at Islands. Let's talk about naysayers and people saying no. So we met this, funnily enough. He does a lot of music producing in, films DJs. This guy in Costa Rica, he was a bit of a knobhead. He was an American guy. Literally, we sat at this bar, and the first thing he does is he sat us down. We met these Canadian guys, and like, oh, we've got this guy. They're at BPM, they now do it in Costa Rica.
Okay.
And he comes down, he goes, guys, what's your dream? And I was like, are you fucking joking me, yeah? And then he was like, this is my dream. I was like, as in like, I'm in Costa Rica on the piss, like this is banging. And he was like, no, that's a goal. That's the sort of guy he was. And I was like, give it a rest. Like, just talking about like, just a bit of a dickhead. But, and I actually thought this was, at the time I was like, this sums up this guy. He's just a bit of a pillock.
Yeah.
But he goes, dude, like...
he's like that. He's like a guy out of like an In-Betweeners.
Yeah. Like, he's like Jay from the In-Betweeners, basically, but American, and he's a record producer, a video producer. But he goes, dude, I'm a trampoline in a sea full of anchors. And I was like, I was basically laughing and being like, that is so cringe. But the more I think about it, right, is like... You kind of are this trampoline, as in like every fucker for 8 years has tried to pull you down.
Yeah.
You said you're a punching bag.
Yeah.
What were some of those things people were saying to you religiously, militantly, and how did you stay positive? Because I think without any, the common theme between everyone I've interviewed or just chatted, I hate calling it an interview, but is like an unholy amount of resilience.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
So as a kid, I always see this is the typical founder LinkedIn post. My teacher as a kid they told me I wouldn't amount to anything. Look at me now. That literally is like, that's the poster boy of like, but that literally is my story. Like from a kid, I was always told, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Like every single parent's evening, Josh isn't performing, he's not performing, he's not performing, he's not performing. So my whole life, I've been used to, you're shit, you're shit, you're shit. He's got ADHD, he can't do that, he's this, he's that, he's that. So starting Cano Water, and also the same with DJing actually, like just like, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And I would always get better and better and better and better and better to get to a point where people are like, fuck. And with Cano Water, when starting it, I remember when I told my family, they literally thought that we were mad. Like my sister Lauren, we laughed the whole time because I remember coming home one day and hearing her saying to her friend who said, what's Josh up to? And my sister goes, he's starting this canned water company. It's just the most stupid thing ever. Like, who would drink canned water? I remember my dad coming home one night and being like, oh, like some guy was like, said it was a bit silly, but like, you just keep going. You just keep going. And it's just like, even like people that we grew up with, like people would say to me like, oh yeah, I spoke to so-and-so, they said it was shit. So I knew that it was going to be difficult. I think that the hard thing for us was when business leaders would say it. So like we met with one of the founders of arguably the biggest drinks company in the country, this country. And
what can you say who it is?
I can't say who it is.
Can you like say it and I'll take it out?
I'll tell you after.
Tell me after. Yeah.
But these guys are like, this might give it away. Like they're like the dream founders of any drinks company in the country. Yeah. And we sat down with one of them who basically just said, listen, it's a cool product. It looks good, but the plastic problem's not that bad. They sell loads of plastic. And like you'll never get into Tesco's. And I just don't see why consumers would want to drink out of a can rather than a plastic bottle. And that just like, the conversations like that from people like that just shatter you. Like you just, that's like no sleep for 3 days.
When you say shatter you, so what's the feeling as you get in your car and you get on the train? Like talk to me about what does shatter you feel like?
Like just like a feeling of failure, a feeling of like how, like, are we the only people that believe in this? Are we mad? And obviously with my background of just always being doubted, like you do think like, why is it that this person who has so much knowledge thinks that you like are shit or your product shit? And you take it but you take it personally, really, really personally. But then, you know, that was the common theme throughout. And actually, funny enough, I'll never forget it. And this is another innovator. This is a perfect innovator copycat story. Send an email to Selfridges, arguably, you know, startup heaven, but still like big, and say to them, we've got this product, we haven't even got, and we at this point we didn't even have, for the first 6 to 8 months we didn't have a prototype. You need 150,000 of each SKU to make a can of water. Basically, we hadn't even tried cans of water at this point, but we emailed Selfridges, and within 6 weeks Selfridges basically got back to us and said, you need to come in for a meeting. And the buyer that had just joined Selfridges, he basically was like, have you got any inside knowledge of what's going on at Selfridges? And we were like, no, what? He was like, well, I just joined from Harrods, and my first mandate that I've been given is to remove all plastic from the shelves. We'll be the first retailer.
What year was this?
This was in 2016. We'll be the first retailer in the world, actually this is 2015, we'll be the first retailer in the world to remove plastic out of our fridges. We're doing something called Project Ocean. And you've emailed me not only the week that I've started, but the week that I got that mandate. It's the strangest thing ever. He was like, Selfridges will be placing an order for Cano Water. We want you to be one of the leading products that we launch with. Then London Fashion Week got in touch and we're like, we love, and you know, we obviously from the fashion perspective, like we love Cano Water and we want to choose Cano Water for. So amongst hundreds of no's, and by the way, that was at the beginning before a load of no's actually, because I think that, you know, they were actually looking back the easy ones, but you sort of, it's like this. and then and you're sort of you're just always, it's always
the
ups
black and
and
the
downs,
white.
black and the white. It's coming back.
Yeah,
It's like, and I think that after, like, for the next 4 years, it was honestly, mate, it was the most depressing, anxious. Like, there were some days where, like, I'd go home just in tears, and I'm not an emotional person. I wouldn't show it. I would just go home and just cry, because it'd be a whole day of just no, this is stupid. Why would anyone want to do this? We're going back to this BlackBerry versus iPhone thing. This this sort of innovators and like and people and the copycats of people doubting. But you just keep going, and you go. And I actually think that right now, and I actually saw you post about this the other day, like, I actually think that right now is the best time for anyone to start a functional beverage or a brand.
Oh, for sure.
Do you know why? Because brands like Cano water and Dash and Huel have basically, and Oatly, have basically been the punching bags where we've basically shown that anything is possible.
Oh, yeah.
So all these buyers that basically were like, no, we just want the same old shit, are basically like, oh no, we actually can see now that people will buy, like, new innovation, whether it be kombucha or kefir or matcha, or, you know, like, this is the best time ever to puff your chest out and be a and be a product. I think that the brand still, I'm brand first always. I think the brand has to be incredible for you to have success. I believe, not right at the beginning, but by the end of it, like, I genuinely believe Oatly is an incredible brand. I do. And I think Huel as well is a really good brand. I think you have to stand out, because if you don't stand out, you'll basically just be washed out by the next functional beverage. But I do think that this is the best time ever, and people had to take the hits to get to where we are.
You took the hits, you surfed, you paddled out when the waves were no, which has allowed you to find the surf and kind of, I'm not saying catch the wave, but like the wave coming in your favour is David Attenborough. It's the Selfridges, serendipity of Selfridges. It's the London or Milan Fashion Week, whatever you said. And that's the wave coming in. And then when people see that wave, there's other brands on the beach with a surfboard and or brand. They're like, oh, we fancy a bit of that.
Yeah.
So now it's getting busier. And now it's getting crowded, and I think you're right. Like, people, you guys for sure were one of the first to pioneer the wave, like, see the wave.
Yeah.
I was watching a documentary about surfing randomly, and they were talking about, like, finding waves.
Yeah.
And there's this place called Nazaré in Portugal. She had the 5 biggest surf spots in the world. One fucker, this guy called Rob, I think his name.
Obviously, Rob.
Yeah. He's called a Rob, mate. Yeah, he's a scaffolder. No, I'm joking. But he went and found this place, and he was the first one. And now it's a tourist destination, and it's the same thing with the functional drinks category. Is you guys were paving the way, but I still think resilience is. I want to get kind of dig in slightly further into this resilience. So you come out of a meeting by, people have said it's just not going to work. Your friends, I think that's the interesting one. Is some of your friends will really support you. Some will be really kind of, because they don't want you to do well.
Yeah,
it's a fucking British thing. I don't know what it is.
I've seen it.
What do you get? You get a day full of no's. You look at yourself in the mirror at that night. What do you say? What does Josh say to himself to just keep going?
I think that it's just, you learn to get thick-skinned, and also, I've gone through much more painful stuff in my life, as we spoke about before, whether it be my brother being ill or family members being ill, or, even like heartbreak, which is a really, really tough thing. Like, I've taken harder punches. I think that this is our baby. So it is tough, but I think that, I personally think that failure is a really, really good thing. And I think that making, like, as I said before, like turning my wrongs into rights, I think that the obsession with making it work clouded it. Naivety is amazing at times, because you sort of, because we didn't come from a drinks background, we were so naive.
Yeah.
And I speak about that quite a lot, because if we had a drinks background, not only would we not have started this, but we would have probably given up, to be honest with you. I think because we were so obsessed with making a difference, and also like something else that is like, this is a purpose-led business. This isn't just a brand that's sort of been plucked out of nowhere. We're here for a mission. This is a fucking war against plastic. So in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, it's no's, but we've got to keep going. We've got to keep going. Because if I give up, they've won. You know? And do you know how proud it makes me that there's brands like Liquid Death and Evian have gone into a sparkling can, and Smart Water in the US are going into cans. And, you know, this is success. This isn't failure. This is success. Being in a category by yourself is actually the most depressing thing in the world.
Depressing.
Just
Yeah.
being the only person in the category. People are like, oh wow, you're the only person in the category. No, it's horrible, because like the plastic people are like forcing their hand to go into cans, and becoming a pioneer. You know, we don't even need to be a category leader. Like, as long as we are remembered as being the first and the ones that have done this, I think that's super important from a creative perspective. Otherwise, what's the point? But I think that the excitement of what the brand could be helps the sleepless nights, in all honesty, and also having a team as well who want the same for you. But you know, there have been plenty of times, which I said before, where I just have given up. And burnout is something it was a story of my early days of just constant burnout. Whereas now I'll go to the gym. Like there's no time where, like, I'll be completely honest with you. I'm not a firm believer in hustle culture. I never have been. This is a personal thing for me. I don't believe in hustle culture.
Sorry, this is interesting, right? Because this is really nuanced. So some people think hustle is working 17 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
That's one part.
Okay.
Another part, and it's because I'm a bit conflicted.
So
with this.
I don't believe in that part.
Yeah, but then there's also the hustle of making things happen out of nothing.
Yeah.
The hustle.
I'm
of,
good at that part.
Yeah. The hustle of like standing out, giving flyers out.
100%.
So it's interesting.
You are right there. Because I've never heard it that way.
Yeah, because I think because people are like, oh my god, I'm so anti-hustle culture. So I would say, like, you're a hustler. Like, but I don't mean I feel like 50 Cent. We should put 50 Cent on now. Like, Get Rich or Die Trying, boy.
Favorite album.
Yeah. Sick album. But you know, so it's there's a kind of a nuance here, because it's like some people say don't hustle. But it's like, but I think working 16 hours a day is completely stupid.
Yeah, so do I.
Because I could generally do
it's work smart, isn't it?
Yeah, I could do my day in 5 hours.
Yeah.
So there's that part. There's like the actual time of doing work, and I disagree with that. But then the hustle, the way I see a hustle is like, okay, if I know this person knows that buyer 100%. Knows the category director, how can I put samples in, or how can I get samples? How can I get in front of that person?
I completely
That's
agree
hustle
with you.
to me.
Yeah, I agree
so it's
with you.
interesting. Yeah, but
no, it's really nice that you put it that way, because that is exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't believe that 17-hour days are the way forward. I actually think that will just lead you into an anxious life. I think that there's one word that I try and live by, and it's a very simple word, but I believe that we don't have enough of it, which is balance. Like, I think that a lot of people just put all their eggs into one basket. You know, whether it be, I'm about to have a kid in
Sick.
2 months.
Amazing.
Which is,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Which is super scary, but it's important to have balance. You know, I've just bought a Peloton for my home. Peloton's a brand that I actually really like as well. But the reason I bought the Peloton is because I'm going to be at home a lot with a screaming baby, and I need to make sure that I have balance, you know, and I want to be super supportive, and I will be, and I'll be a very, very hands-on dad, because that's what I'm like. But I need to make sure that for the 45 minutes of the baby sleeping, that I can sort of go and do what I love doing, which is like, you know, exercising or spending time with my wife or whatever. I think that if you just concentrate 100% on work, you will fade into the this sort of this person that just doesn't necessarily have any purpose outside of that, if that makes sense. And I think that I've seen it with a lot of people, and it's a really slippery slope.
Again, that requires some nuance, because I think if you look at it over 7 years, you almost need that, not 17 hours a day. Let's get to like the crux of this. You kind of need for at least 2 years to be all in.
First 2 years.
First 2 years. So it's like it's because I think a lot of the founders, like not just yourself, but like a lot of founders who've done the burnout bit. I'm not saying burnout is a thing, but it's an art. It's like you need to go run so fucking hard at that problem because no one else is going to run at that problem.
Yeah, great.
You need to be in the waves, get in the water. But if you do it, if you go too much and you don't recuperate, you're gonna drown, which is the burnout.
Yeah, it's about. Do you know what it is? It's about. But it's the balance. It goes back to balance. It's the balance of that. The balance,
mate,
black and white.
Yeah, black and white.
It really, really is the balance of all of it. It's like the balance of the hustle, but with making sure that you've got time for your family and for yourself and for your friends. You know, it's super, super important that you don't become that recluse that just takes all the hits, goes to bed, wakes up and takes the hit. I just don't believe that's life.
And also having, I think, like none of my friends give a fuck about this. Like they don't care.
They won't.
And then it's amazing.
Yeah,
like, when I go to the pub, I just want to talk absolute shit with my mates.
I'm exactly the same. And also, like, when I go out with my mates, I don't actually want to talk about anything to do with money or work or anything. I'm completely. I am that guy, that awkward guy that will just remove every conversation of football, money, work, and be like, but how are you? But how actually are you? And you know, a lot of the time, what I get, I'm not actually great. Look good. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So we've talked about a lot of and I think it's. I appreciate you being so candid, mate. I honestly do.
Always. Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the, like, you know, the days when you've gone like, this is all worth it.
Yeah.
Like, what would you say? And it's pretty hard to kind of pinpoint. But what was maybe the day that, like, and actually because you're a DJ, there's two parts to this question. So, like, what was the day when you're like, I'm fucking having it, boy? Like, this is everything I wanted to do. I've achieved it. And then what song would you pick to go with that day? I asked this. The reason I asked this to Ben Branson from Seed. In fact, I'll introduce you to him because he's
definitely
got you'd be an amazing guest on it. He's got an ADHD podcast called Hidden.
I'd love to do it.
Hidden 20%.
Yeah,
mate, I'll introduce you.
I'd love that.
Yeah, he's a G. But basically, the question I asked him was, what song would you pick the day he sold to Diageo? Like, what song would you pick?
Yeah.
And he picked Bittersweet Symphony by the Verve. Sick song, the whole
Sick song.
I was listening to it in the car, like, just imagine, like, you just made all this, I don't know what's all about the dough, but, like, you just sold your brand, it's bittersweet, sick. Yeah, so what has been
I've got the song.
Yeah, what's the song?
The song's Many Men by 50 Cent.
Oh, that's a tune.
Because you know what it is? Many men wish death upon me. It's like that's our story. Like, but we've powered through.
I sometimes think that I put that song on Many Men. Like, I sometimes think, like, I'm in the gym, that I may as well get one of those things around my head and get some gold chains and stuff.
Like, bodybuilder.
Yeah.
So Many Men's the song. Achievement. I mean, do you know what? There's been a few times. One of the main ones that I'm super proud of is bringing in our chairman, who's an investor in the business, who is Stefan Orlowski, who's the ex-president of Heineken. He was the ex-president globally for Heineken. After being told by so many people that we were uninvestable, you know, and him who has had a portfolio of billions of pounds, who has worked for the biggest company, arguably one of the biggest companies in the world, Stefan. Yeah. You know, is come in and believes our mission and our vision is something that was super, super, like, incredible. Like,
describe the first meeting you had with him. Where was that? Like, what did that feel like?
Really, really incredible, open, honest guy who believes in not only the brand but his founders and the vision and the story and everything. I've learned so much from him. He's not someone who, like, is on top of you like a micromanaging guy. He's more of a coach and a mentor and someone that I really, really look up to.
What are some of the things Stefan's taught you? You know, you kind of alluded to earlier that you were saying, like, you know, if we were to do this conversation like 8 years ago, there'd be kind of a different person in front of me. What are some of the 1, 2, 3 maybe lessons that you're like, that's had a kind of an enormous, gargantuan kind of change in you and the business?
He's taught me how to be me, in all honesty, of like in this business, of like to really believe in myself.
That's
like
wild that you don't believe in yourself.
I know, but it's from within. You know, I hate this imposter syndrome conversation, but it is that.
Yeah.
It's like this nonsense of belief. He has made me really believe in myself.
But what? How did he do that?
Just by sort of encouraging me.
Yeah.
Like just by sort of like giving me the energy, and sort of like someone with that ilk and that sort of background telling you that, but sort of just like really sort of bigging you up and giving you that sense of belief. He's been a real pivotal part in my growth in the past 2 years here.
Yeah.
Another thing is the US, you know, like as we've spoken, like everyone looks at the US as being like the holy grail. And I've seen it where a lot of brands have gone over there and just like tried to run before they could walk. So taking a lot of advice on how not to do that and how to steadily do it. And
So how are you going into the US? Because we were talking before we hit record, right, is like we're so similar but so different.
Yeah.
And the way I describe it, and actually we'll talk about this, is Ricky Gervais, right?
Yeah.
I know he's an investor.
Yeah.
But what I think what really pinpoints the difference is when, you know, The Office, that's my favourite programme of all time. That is just so jokes. I love it. But when they launched in America, Ricky had to like redo the jokes and tailor them to that thing. The other example, I put this on LinkedIn the other day, is football fans. If you watch American football fans, as in, I mean, like Saka, if you want to call it that, versus the English, like Millwall compared to Atlanta Bears, it's like, let's go. The guy's like, let's go Seattle. Whereas Millwall were like, fuck you. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're very similar, but we're completely different. What have been the kind of those differences you've noticed taking this can of water into the States?
Yeah, so we haven't launched yet. We've
Right.
just we're about to launch. We're about to launch, but I think that learning is completely important. Not just thinking that you can literally just tomorrow launch a brand in the US. So we're doing a very, very small proof of concept launch in LA, working with an incubator partner who chooses only a few brands a year who have had massive success with a lot of US brands, who sort of test you out in some of the big sort of grocery chains in the US. I'll be honest with you, if there wasn't brands like Liquid Death and Smart Water weren't launching, and you know it wasn't already a canned water market, I'd be very, very apprehensive about doing this, if I'm honest with you, because I think we'd need serious money. And even though we're going to need serious money anyway to roll out nationally, I think the most important thing is there is a canned water market out there, and cans of water, especially in LA, are, you know, quite a big thing. Alternatives to plastic, you know, they've put a lot of laws in on plastic bans, and as I said to you before, the whole of LA airport is only cans, which is incredible. So I think that it's the right time. I think that there would be strong growth. I think that can of water is a completely different proposition. I mean, something that we haven't touched on is the name of can of water.
Mate,
Like
that's wild. I was
like,
literally...
for me, that is the number one thing.
Why
that a lot
Cano?
of people? Well, it is what it is. And by the way, if you can buy a Coke can of water, you can buy a Liquid Death, you can buy any single brand can put water in a can, but we will always be the can of water. Can I have a can of water, mate? Can I have a can of water, mate? Can I have a can of water?
It's a can of water.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to work out the Cano.
Yeah,
Can of
there you go.
water.
Can I have a can of water?
Can I have a Coke?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like, you know, that is it. It was a play on words. It was like the Cano water.
Can of water.
And
That's
also,
sick,
even the don't bottle, it's quite English actually when you throw it. Can I have a can of water, mate? Don't bottle it. You know, it's like there's that was the original sort of plan. But in the US, you know, they get it as well, actually. It's like they get and we've done quite a bit of market research, and we're working with a really, really good marketing consultant out there who sort of like she worked with, she's one of the biggest, she was marketing director for Celsius, and also
Celsius, is that the drink?
The drink, yeah.
I think, don't they sponsor a lot of podcasts?
Yeah. They just got bought out by Coke, I think.
Oh,
as well.
sweet, yeah.
And also LaCroix, the sparkling Water's a bit like Dash in America.
Yeah, I have a little gander.
So,
mine,
it's all about learning and not expecting that you're just going to get, huge traction overnight, because it's just not going to happen, and it's hard. So I think one of the things that I'm super excited about outside of grocery is the success that we get in this country. So things like the F1, things like hospitality, these are places that, in all honesty, I think brands like Liquid Death will struggle with. The places like hotels and airports, and if you go on a flight, like Virgin Atlantic are one of our biggest customers. We're the only water upper class globally. That's where we have serious success, is like that premium market where people want a different brand that is sustainable. And I think that in the US, I think that we'll have a lot of traction in that world, in hotels, gyms and places like that. So I'm super excited, but don't by any means think it's going to be easy and just like transferable. Our language will definitely be a bit different.
Oh, really?
Our
okay.
language will be.
So that's a bit like The Office going from the UK to the US. How will it be different? What's the nuance?
It's funny. I actually think that I'm a bit more American than I am English, if I'm honest with you. Where all
get
of
out,
my
mate. Get out.
Yeah, get out.
That's the David Brentism. Get out.
Get out.
Get out. What does he say?
It's funny. Growing up, like where all of my mates, like where people would look at like a Range Rover as like a very English car, I went for a Jeep Wrangler.
Oh, yeah. Is that one that's outside?
No, very American. I don't have that car anymore. I've got a bit more sustainable electric. But I always have, even comedy, I always went a bit more like Dave Chappelle or like Chris Rock or like American-y. So it's funny when I was writing some of the copy for the US, it naturally. The problem with the UK, and we touched on this before, is that they'll find any reason to tell you why your product is shit, and they'll question it, and they'll be like, "I just don't get it, mate. I just don't get it."
Yeah.
The English consumer are a bit like sheep. If everyone else does it, then they'll do it, and I do think that the US is a bit like that as well. But I think the US don't necessarily care as much as the UK consumer. In all honesty, I think that if they believe in it, then they'll support it. Whereas I think the UK consumer is a little bit more, and I actually think it's a good thing and a bad thing, because I think we don't fall for necessarily for the influencer shit like the US do. So like you see like in Love Island, someone holding, we now know that that's just marketing. And it's not easy to do that anymore, as what it used to be. But in the US, if you have a product on the Andrew Huberman podcast, you can bet your bottom dollar that brand, or Joe Rogan, that brand is going like that. There's a lot of power in the US for influence.
Yeah.
But here we're a lot more real. We're a lot more like, no, I'm not. I'm gonna look a bit more into this.
Hi guys, super quick one. So excited. Look, for years I've been badgering on about Hungry the podcast. You're probably bored to death. Thanks for putting up with me. But Hungry is also an agency, and we look after one amazing brand called Islands Chocolate. We've had a great time over the year. We've won listings at a load of wholesalers. We've got Milk and More. We've got our first grocery listing coming very soon, which is very sick. But what I'm thrilled to announce is Hungry is merging with HC Consulting. My boy Harry Clark and his wonderful team, he's an absolute G. They do brand strategy, new business and account management. But why I really love working with Harry and why we've got on so well over the last couple of months is Harry was actually the founder of the boozy ice-lolly brand Pops. So he's been in the trenches, he's grafted his face off, he's had the sleepless nights, he's had the turmoil, he's had the triumph, he knows what it is to be a founder, he is a founder. And he's got a proven track record in grocery and out of home. Holy moly dips, the gut stuff, Savile drinks, Remio gelato. So if you're a brand and you're stuck, you're looking for like new business help, you're looking to scale, drop us a message. We'd love to chat. Thank you so much. Back to the old episode.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So we were talking about like the difference in copy. So like, don't bottle it is a very British way of saying things. Like, you said you were writing the copy. Like, what were some of the things you were writing? Because I'm trying to work out.
I'll give you an example. On the back of the can,
yeah,
we've got like created by three mates from London. So it's sort of like it's a bit English, quite Englishy.
Yeah,
it's quite Englishy. But also we've got a massive caution sign, which basically says, "Caution: you may never want to drink a plastic bottle again."
Right.
Like it's sort of it's a bit more tongue in cheek. It's actually a little bit more sort of not taking ourselves too serious. In all honesty, like I can't really think of the exact copy.
Well, that's the difference. Caution: you may never drink a bottle of
a plastic bottle again.
Plastic bottle again. Versus don't bottle it. Don't bottle it. I mean, I can imagine coming out of a pub in wherever. The man said, don't bottle it, mate. Yeah, don't bottle it.
And we are going to have don't bottle it in the US because we've done a lot of market research on it.
They know what don't bottle it means.
They don't necessarily know what it means to us here. Yeah. They look at it in two ways. They look at it like
literally
not putting water in a plastic bottle, not bottling it. And they also look at it like not bottling up your feelings. So they do look at it like that. So they see it, but we look at it like if you're about to take a penalty,
don't fuck it,
basically don't fuck it up, basically. So we take it a bit like that. But one of the things that we want to do, especially from a PR perspective in the US, is like we want to educate people a bit on what don't bottle it means. It is going to be it's going to be a British brand.
Yep.
Even though the water is going to be from California, it's going to be local, which is really, really important for us. But we are going to be positioning it as a British brand. First people in the world to put water in a can. Did it in the UK.
I'm just thinking of ideas here, but that's really smart because the Americans talking about back to fashion and stuff. They don't. I'm not. This is a gross generalization. But like their fashion's crap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like sandals and shit like that. But like they look at kind of.
They look at UK.
Well, even
now.
we met these girls in Costa Rica and they were basically saying that they look at London, Paris and Milan for fashion.
100%.
So if you're the fashion water brand,
and do you know what's funny? All of us, when we were younger, we all used to look at American culture and be obsessed with it.
Yeah.
And I actually think that the UK has stepped up massively in the past 10 years.
Yes.
Music. I mean, Fred again.
I mean, also. What is it? Is it Drake who's obsessed with Skepta? I know he's Canadian.
I mean, Drake's one of my favourite ever artists, and he has single-handedly helped build the grime generation here, and the grime has helped. If you look at US drill, it's
US
a
drill.
lot of it, drill music. So Yeah, I'll have to send you a bit.
We'll go down the Wall of Fame.
Let's
whatever.
do it. But there's this genre that's drill that comes from sort of like the UK, but it's also a bit in like the US at the moment, and they've taken a lot of inspiration, like hip hop, and so it's have you heard of Pop Smoke?
No.
He died unfortunately, but he was like a New York rapper who took like this UK sound into the US, and it's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Really, really interesting.
Combining two different things.
Yeah.
The also now, like in terms of the newness, what I find fascinating is how Skepta's now gone into house and techno.
Yeah.
I saw a video of him playing like
at Drum Sheds. He was at Drum Sheds.
Yeah, Drum Sheds. Yeah. I'm a Tottenham fan. He's a Tottenham fan as well, actually.
I'm Arsenal.
Oh, there we go. Fuck me. Get out. I love Ricky Gervais. Let's talk about Ricky Gervais then. Like, how did that come about?
So
have you met him or like what's?
I've spoken to him. I haven't actually met him yet, to be honest with you. But I actually went to go and see him recently.
What did you go and see?
I went to see him a few weeks ago, and it was
Armageddon.
No. He did it was about 70 people in a room, and he did a small intimate show.
Oh, wild!
And it was the funniest thing I think that I've ever heard in my life.
Where was this?
It was in Piccadilly. In Piccadilly.
Yeah.
It was on another level. It was just so funny. And Cano water was everywhere, which is amazing. It was being sold at the theatre. And it was just a very surreal moment, holding a can of water while watching one of our investors, and obviously it being Ricky. But we were introduced to Ricky, and I think that Ricky's someone that cares about life. Animals, and he's done amazing things for the world. And even though he takes the piss out of it, like even in Armageddon, he took the piss out of the environment and stuff. He took the piss out of little kids and this and that, which, some people can get really offended by a lot of the stuff he says. But then actually, he donates and is, and gives to charity, gives back. So he doesn't just talk and not do. He does. He actually does. So, you know, he does a lot for animals, which we know, and now for the planet with Cano. And he is, you know, an all-round good person, which, you know, is really, really, you know, amazing. And just have someone like that back in the business. And he's done tweets. He did say it recently that just blew my mind. He said, if you can find a can of water, send it in. And that's every founder's nightmare, by the way, because if one of your investors does that and you get 2 responses, doesn't look very good, does it? And he's got 15 million followers. So there were hundreds of replies. And like, that's probably one of my proudest things ever, actually. Like, people just sending pictures of Cano in, really exciting, because, you know, it's all good having a product on the shelf, but if no one can find it, you just fall by the wayside, don't you?
So you have a phone. So you get introduced to Ricky on email. What are the actual steps off the back of that?
The steps is that he'd
heard about you before.
He'd heard about us before, but we got introduced to him. There's a few people actually that we'll talk about as well. One of them being the Sidemen, because 3 of the Sidemen have now invested in Cano as well. And so is
that's
Dave,
a massive YouTube
the
channel.
rapper. Yeah.
Mate,
and these guys, you know, like, some of it came off of the back of like a relationship with us, and then the Ricky Gervais one came from like a guy that is an investor in the business already, like sort of like put it in front of him, and he loved it. So, you know, I think that it's a few things between like the founder story and the mission and the brand is why people invest in this business. And we've had, you know, very, very good success, like Paul McGinley, the golfer. We've got Mark Webber from the F1, you know, Jess Glynn, the singer, the Sidemen, Dave, Maverick Sabre. I don't remember Maverick Sabre, the singer. Like, there's people that have invested in the
Hasn't
brand.
he got a song that's out, like, I think there's another Costa Rican song, but... yeah, sorry, mate. That's my.
That's
yeah.
You went off.
Yeah.
So, you know, some really, and then, you know, we just got some really, really good people behind the brand, behind the business that have, you know, that have looked in and thought this is a good horse to back. And Ricky being one of them for sure.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I actually met him once. I was doing a internship in Soho in like this marketing agency, and I was quite bad. I just kept going down for cigarettes because like, you haven't got anything for me to do. So I was like, I'm fucking bored. So I just went down. Anyway, I saw him and he was getting into a black cab, and he was like driving off, and I've got it. It's on my Facebook, and I literally ran, because I was like, Ricky. I felt like, you know, Sonia out of his Sonia, Ricky, come here, Ricky. And I banged on the window, and I was like, he's obviously just going to tell me to do one, right? But he was like, pull down like for 2 minutes. Nice. So I was like, because that was a make or break moment. Because if he drove off, I don't think I'd ever be able to watch Office again.
Yeah. I know, I get you.
But it's wild in terms of. I think in terms of kind of getting the brand going, so we've talked a lot about these kind of bigger macro factors in terms of like the waves, the David Attenborough moment, the Ricky Gervais moment. What's the makeup of the business now in terms of kind of the actual distribution? We briefly talked about the chicken and egg of wholesale. So where are you in the wholesale world? Like, what's been kind of I always find that every brand, not every, but a lot of brands have this kind of slipstream channel. So like slipstream in surfing is if you get a slipstream, it pulls you faster. I think, and it's like a channel you may not be thinking of. So for example, at Islands, who's a chocolate brand I do a bit of work with, like their Gales account, they were kind of going kind of here. The hot chocolate, Gales basically made hot chocolate cool again. That's gone like
huge.
So what's kind of the makeup of your
food service is very, very big for us. So
right.
like getting into like schools, universities, hotels, sort of anywhere. We've got open and closed distribution. Okay. Open and closed distribution. So open distribution is where there's other brands. So not just Cano Water, there might be Highland Spring, Evian, and loads of other brands in a supermarket. And closed distribution is where we're the only water on the shelf. Closed distribution, we fly.
How do you get? I've never heard of that. How do you get closed?
We made it up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we made it up.
Yeah.
So it actually came from our current MD, but we've got closed distribution. We fly when we're the only one on the shelf. We fly. So like big head offices, and people just, you know, I go into meetings or like Apple's head office, only Cano.
Where's that, Battersea?
In town somewhere. Like Apple Music, Apple, like we're the only water. It's so sick. Global's head office, Capital FM, Heart, only water. You go there, everyone's drinking Cano, loving it. It's amazing. I mean, it's just so nice. In places where we are not the only choice, retail, it's tough. Very, very positioning on the planogram, only one SKU a lot of the time as well. Just still, you know, we're actually have got an announcement to make in the next few weeks where we're putting sparkling into one of our big retailers, which has been, you know, difficult. But when you've only got one facing, really, and you are not really a money maker, you're more of a sort of like you're more of a need on the shelf because they need an alternative to plastic. How are we going to do well? You know, so when we launched into Tesco's, 1,000 Tesco's, no one knew who we were, and we were just like, it was really, really tough because like no one knows us. When we have got good facings and we look good and people see us and we puff our chest out, that's when we excel massively. Because a fridge full of Cano is just beautiful. Like in town, if you go into Farmer J or Coca de Mama or, you know, Boost Juice, and it's all Cano, it just looks amazing. And it's great for the brand because they're doing better. Haven't got any plastic. But when you walk into a supermarket, like Whole Foods or whatever, and it's just 1,000, just plastic everywhere. Everywhere. You know, these businesses like Boots and M&S, like, they need to do better. They need to do better.
How have you solved, because that's a lot of stores to go into for a new brand. Like, how's that, from what you're allowed to kind of say, like, how have you solved that problem basically? Because I think, I mean, I can't say the businesses, but sometimes I've been involved with where a retailer's given us too much distribution. It's like, give us. I was speaking to a guy, I won't say the brand, he's just been delisted from a big retailer. And we were talking about this, funnily enough, in the gym. And he was saying, you know, they just gave us way too many stores, which meant we're never going to hit that hurdle rate.
It's the one of, I would say that it is one of, running before you can walk is one of the worst things that you can do as a business. And the problem with Cano Water was that we weren't planning to run before we can walk because of the David Attenborough thing, we got so much interest that it was like, honestly, for 4 years, we didn't even have to chase anyone. We had the dream.
You had the wave, boy.
We had the dream. Like, we had Breaks, Bid Food, Booker, all of the biggest wholesalers, Tesco, all of the biggest, everyone coming to us. We want you, we want you, we want you, we want you. And it was actually quite unfair on us. We were like, wow, this is amazing. But the truth is that getting brand awareness is like, it's funny because when you think about Oatly, Tony's Chocolonely, Brewdog, these brands have been around for years, 20 years, some of them, I think. You know, they've had so much. We've only been around for 7. Well, do you know what? I actually say that we've only been around for 4 years because the first 4 years was just pathetic, and we were building like, and then there was COVID for 2 years. Like, we actually had no chance really. So when you're putting 1,000 stores, what is better is to not do that and to probably just launch in 200 stores and really, really make sure that you're merchandised right and that you look great and you learn from it and then grow from there. And I think it's a really tough pill to swallow for a founder who wants everything, you know. But
yeah,
we had no choice.
It's completely counterintuitive to say I want less distribution, and I talk about this a lot. But it's like I host founders supper clubs, right? But it's like you can almost see the swinging dick contest at the beginning. It's like, how many stores you in, mate?
Yeah,
it's like top trumps.
It's funny. I'm the complete opposite. And what I always try and do is just be a bit more real. How shit is your rate of sale?
So how? Yeah, I know it's so true. So do you? Because the other thing is, small brands, they can never get to these nooks and crannies of distribution.
Yeah, I've rarely seen a small brand grow severely in retail in the past 10 years, like in FMCG. It's really, really difficult.
So would you say, again, not specifics, just ballparks? So what percentage of so you got grocery is Tesco?
Yeah.
Then we've got
a load of wholesale.
Yeah,
which is enormous for us. It's like it's a massive.
Everyone
massive
focuses
chunk
on
of the
grocery,
business.
but I think wholesale
for us.
Wholesale's how you build a brand.
Wholesale for us is absolutely enormous.
Yeah,
and I would say that without wholesale, we wouldn't be able to do grocery.
Yeah.
So like having a great wholesale model enables you to build your brand in
wholesale's walking before
grocery.
You run.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone wants to go to grocery because it looks great on LinkedIn. But it's like
exactly. It's a really, really tough one, and I think it's one that, you know, it's all good being in all these places, but a lot of these companies, you know, it's not cheap, and you can do a real great testing bed in wholesale. Just working with, you know, these small wholesalers and getting you into these sort of like independent cafes and seeing how it works. And I'm really, really proud that, you know, that wholesale model works for us. I get sent pictures every single day from people of like, I've seen your product here, I've seen your product there, whether it be like BBC or at a head office, or as I said, like a hotel or a club. The only annoying thing about wholesale is that you can't control where the product is. So we don't care about that, but like people say, oh, do you not know that you're in that place? No, because we sell in thousands and thousands of places. And let me just tell you this, with water, it's enormous. It's bigger than, I would say it's bigger than flavoured drinks.
So when you
we can be anywhere. We could be in stadiums. Water, you drink water anywhere. So where like, even like festivals and clubs, like some festivals we've sold like 300,000 units at one festival. You know, soft drinks can't really, but alcohol can, but water is everywhere and it's a necessity. So there's so many avenues for water, but it's about finding the ones that, the channels where your water works.
Yeah, it's and where, so that's been mainly the food service. When you say food service, is that more like, the wholesale food service, that's more like your breaks and stuff like that where it's going? Yeah. A few more things, mate, but I'm absolutely loving this, mate. But one thing I want to ask you about is the cap.
Yes.
So there's a guy, I don't even know who Rory Sutherland is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he loves your drink, by the way.
Wow.
So he basically said he didn't drink this. He didn't say this to me on my podcast, but he said it on a podcast that as soon as he started having the canned water, which was you guys, he goes, there's a brand, so it wasn't the Evian, it was definitely you guys, he talks about a thing called psychophysics.
Yeah.
And genuinely what you have the drink or the product in the container genuinely changes the taste.
Yeah.
So for example, if I give you a pint of Guinness, I know you don't drink, but say I'll give you a pint of Guinness in a Costa cup.
It will taste different.
Yeah, versus it's the same Guinness from the same tap. It's going to taste very different.
Yeah.
I think there's something, canned water, I know it's water, right? There's something about when it's fucking cold that is just, you can't, I
say to everyone, there is nothing better than a cold can of water.
Yes.
Like, it really is.
Yes.
It's similar to glass, but it's because it stays colder for longer.
Yes. Yeah.
So plastic is what we're used to. And you could arguably say that the taste of drinking out of a plastic bottle is the plastic. You could say that, like that's what but there's, from a can, it stays so cold. Some people are like, oh, it tastes a bit different. But you could argue that you're used to drink, because if you put water in a plastic bottle versus a glass, it tastes a bit different. Water is harder to notice because it's water, but it is so refreshing drinking out of a can. And I think that once you've got over the sort of psychological thing of it being in a can, you just start to realise that it actually tastes better.
It does. And another thing Roy and I were talking about is gratuitous perversity, which is a word I don't understand. But basically, what he's basically saying is you do things that it doesn't make sense on paper, but you do things that would kind of annoy a customer, and that in turn makes them want it more.
Yeah.
The obvious example would be something like, there's a place, we talked about this place called Pockets in East London, which is a falafel wrap place. Yeah. They're only open for 3 hours. Yeah. Clever, because it's like, why are you only open for 3 hours?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another example. What Rory was
saying. Thursday, a little bit as well.
Exactly. Yeah,
Thursday's a really good
the dating
one.
app is
just
great.
Going against the grain.
Yes. Yeah, going against the grain, but there's a psychological magic or alchemy, as he says, about it. And I'm going to be really honest with you, this used to really fucking annoy me, these things. Yeah. this is, I would say, a delicious example of gratuitous perversity, which for listeners like on watching it is the can.
Yeah.
It's quite hard to open, but it's something about that makes it so intriguing. I think it's marketing genius.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the why behind it and like.
Well, the why behind it initially was, are we going to be able to create something that goes against the plastic bottle? The whole brand is about convenience and you can't close the can. So we found that lid on page 10 of Google.
Wait, so sorry, go back. So you wanted it to be about...
We wanted it to be about convenience, but you can close the one thing that people love about a plastic bottle is that they can close the plastic bottle and put it in their bag. It's like an Evian is a bit of a fashion brand. You know, people put it in their bag, they take it out, they drink it.
Yeah.
We were like, but what if that's a huge barrier to entry? I think at the beginning it was. People used to walk past us at trade shows and goes, but you can't close the can, but you can. But you can. So that was an incredibly important one. We were looking for an aluminium can top. We got a prototype of one and it cut my colleague Ariel's lip. So we were like, okay, well, we can't go down that route. And we were so scared about not launching with an on-the-go product, a resealable product, that we went with this lid because it was less than a fifth of the weight of the container, which basically means that it just slips through a normal recycling stream and it will be used as waste energy or it will be incinerated. So it wasn't terrible, but it's still plastic at the end of the day. And it's something that we have been trying a long time to sort of look at other options, but people love the convenience of it. And once you've got over the fact that it's hard to open, then you just become, used to it. My grandma, who's in her 90s, opens it with ease now, but at times, at the beginning, it's difficult. It's like the BlackBerry versus iPhone. It's a different technology, and I think that we're going to start seeing it a lot more in the coming years.
It's so clever though. It's marketing genius because it's also like the whole. It's word of mouth on. So someone Perry, who's my sponsor, did Big Fish.
Yeah.
He talks about packvertising, which is usually words. It's usually words. Like, how can your pack do the advertising for you? So it's like in terms of newness, right back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Is it's like this is so new. I'm gonna
pull up from the.
Pull up.
There you go. There you go. Go.
Right.
Keep going.
Fucking hell.
Keep going.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Now slide it back.
Slide it back that way. Yeah. Okay. There we go. We're in the building.
You're in the money.
But that's a talking point.
Yeah.
And that's word of mouth. That's word of mouth. It's so genius.
Don't get me wrong. It has been a barrier to entry at times, and I think that anything new is. And as I said, like trying to get people to understand that it's canned water, and then there's another level of like, and it's resealable, and this is how you open it, isn't easy. But at the end of the day, like. Just like we didn't give up at the beginning, like we're not going to give up on the lid, but would I love to bring some MPD out in the future that sort of is more sustainable? Yeah.
Mate, final thing I want to wrap up with, because we didn't get there at the beginning, is this Boris Johnson wedding, right? And being selected in front of 400 other DJs. Describe that. And I think the real lesson in this or like the way this all links together, we were going to start there, we'll finish there here, is this one thing I've loved about speaking to you today, mate, is you are like relentless and resilient in creating a huge surface of luck for yourself and your brand. And I think this is the perfect place. 400 DJs, you get selected for Boris Johnson's. What were you doing differently to win that? And then what was that like? Yeah,
I think it's just being me, to be honest with you. I got introduced to someone else whether I was free, and I actually said no because I wasn't DJing as much, and then they mentioned what it was for, then I said I was free. But I just... Listen, I've DJed some really, really cool things at some really incredible places. I've DJed to hundreds of thousands of people.
Oh, really?
And done.
Sorry, we'll get back to Boris Johnson.
And done some amazing events. I mean, I used to actually talk about hip hop. Like, I had a residency for 2 years at XOYO in London.
Yeah.
I also actually I was a DJ also for a will.i.am video at Cirque du Soir. It's in the back of the video actually years ago for a song, and like I've done some really, really cool stuff and been part of some amazing things. But people always ask me like, what's the maddest thing that you've DJ'd? And last year I DJ Boris Johnson's wedding, which was really, really interesting.
What's the
very,
opening
very
hip hop
strange.
song you choose for that? What did you choose? It
wasn't even a lot of hip hop actually. It
What
was a
song
lot
did you
of sort
pick?
of like, it was a lot of Backstreet Boys and Spice Girls and shit like that. I might have dropped a bit of Gold Digger in there or whatever, but they were a super fun bunch, to be honest with you. And I don't really get too involved in politics,
Oh, mate,
especially when I'm working. I try and sort of remove any of my personal thoughts. But it was just a funny evening, super super crazy, and one to remember for sure.
Love it. Final question, mate. And I ask this to pretty much all guests: is what's one truth you believe, but most people would probably disagree with you on it?
One truth I believe. This is a really, really good question.
Yeah, that's why I always usually end with it. I probably should have told you about it beforehand.
One truth I believe. I believe that you have to have a story in life and a journey to really, really sort of, and a purpose to be, and I'm not even talking about success, to sort of be, and I've spoken about purpose quite a lot, but I think that you've got to have a story, a journey and purpose and an authentic way about you to really, really sort of to make greatness happen.
And part of that story is not just the razzle dazzle; it's the darkness and the lightness. I think.
Listen, through all of my darkness has, I never saw light at the end of the tunnel. When I told you at the beginning, I could have not have been here today if I had sort of listened to my thoughts in my early years. But there's light now at the end of the tunnel, and I think that wherever my life takes me, and whether whatever happens with Cano and whatever happens, it's the purpose and that authenticity that it's not manufactured, it's real. And I think that that's something that I don't believe that you can manufacture realness. And that's why when we look at when I look at other copycats, I don't see realness. I just see brands that are doing it because...
Well, it couldn't be more real. Like the conversation today, we've talked about light, dark, creativity, overthinking, ups, downs, no's, yeses. It is that symbiotic relationship, the yin and the yang, the black and the white is you, and it's you in your product, mate. And
For sure.
Yeah, it's been a wonderful start to the day. Thank you so much,
very
brother.
much, Dan.
I really appreciate that.
Always.
Oh.
Cool.